as tall as Alex. Okay, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. I think we're right at about 7:30. On behalf of the Ankeny Area Chamber of Commerce Governmental Relations Committee, I'd like to welcome you all. I know some of you are here from the previous forum. My name is Andrea Woodard. I'm Senior Vice President of Government Relations and Public Policy at the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Thank you for the opportunity to join you this evening. I'll be moderating the conversation, and with us we have our two candidates from Iowa Senate District 21. I want to thank all of you for being here, and for those that couldn't attend, this is being recorded and will be posted on the Facebook page for the Ankeny Area Chamber. And just as a reminder and a couple of notes before we get started. The mission of the Government Relations Committee is to provide communication and education on government action and policy issues that may impact the Ankeny Chamber's membership by facilitating the efficient exchange of information between members and elected officials. We want to note, and I'm going to also do the slides here. Uh-oh, hold on. That could have been rough. Okay. All right. Please note the forum rules and regulations that let us conduct a meaningful and respectful forum. The Governmental Relations Committee strives to make the forum neutral and fair to all candidates. If you are recording this evening, we ask that you share the entire recording to ensure the full context of the program. So our forum tonight will carry out the following format. We'll provide each candidate an opening remarks. They'll get 3 minutes apiece. And then each question that has been provided by the chamber membership and the audience will provide for 2 minutes each. And then they will be given 3 minutes apiece for their closing remarks. And there was a call for questions to all Ankeny Area Chamber of Commerce members and to the Government Relations Committee members. The questions for tonight were taken from those submitted by each group. And so we have 5 prepared questions, and then we will take more of the questions that had been shared by the audience with whatever time we have left as time permits. So members of the committee, Mark Land and Jen Walter, will be collecting those questions. I know many of you have submitted them already. Please do remember to ask your questions for all of the candidates and to not point to one candidate or the other. This forum will follow the act of civility. Civility is the act of showing regard for others by being polite. Civility comes from the Latin word civilis, meaning relating to public life befitting a citizen. In other words, being friendly and nice to everyone. All certified candidates were invited to participate in these forums and were provided the forum rules in advance. Okay, I'm going to check the slides here. Okay, so the order of the seating was decided by random draw. We will begin with Todd Brady, followed by Mike Buslow, and then we will rotate each question so that everyone has the opportunity to answer a question first. So luckily, the way that Melissa had it listed on my sheet is the way they drew, so thank you for making it easy tonight. And with that, first, I just want to start by saying thank you both for being here, for participating in the forum. It takes a lot to run for office, and it takes a lot to put your name on a ballot, and looking forward to hearing from you both this evening. If we can just give them a round of applause for their time. And depending on what you say, you'll get a round of applause at the end. But please refrain from any applause during the program. We'll wait till the end to thank them again for their time. So we're going to start by providing Todd his first opening comments. And again, you'll have 3 minutes. Melissa will time you, and then we'll alternate back and forth throughout. So Todd, have at it. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm figuring out the mic still. First, I want to thank the Chamber for putting this on. This is a great opportunity to meet our representatives and candidates. And thank you for hosting all the other events that you do throughout the year. So a lot of issues, a lot of transparency, a lot of communication goes through these events, and I really appreciate it. My name is Todd Brady. I'm running for Senate District 21, and I'm running because there is way too much talking in politics and just not enough doing. I'm a software engineer by day, and as an engineer, I think a lot of us just don't like public speaking. So inside I'm screaming, but I'm going to try and keep calm, cool, and collected as I'm up here. I'm a dad. I have a wife who's a teacher in the district. I've got 2 kids in the school district, and I'm a small business owner. So there's a lot of things going on in my life, and there's a lot of things going on in Ankeny's lives too. So as I'm door knocking, I'm learning a lot of things. And I just think people want us to start doing things and for it to be less divisive. So last year, during the pandemic, we were promised vaccines from the federal level, the state level, and vaccines were going to get us out of this. And they came, and it was a very botched rollout, like a lot of things in the state. And we all waited. My in-laws were trying their hardest to get the vaccines. My friends' parents were trying to get vaccines. And I stepped up and I created Vaccine Hunter to help people get that. It helped hundreds of thousands of Iowans. It helped us get back to work, get back to school, and most importantly, get back to normal. Past couple months, trying to find baby formula for young families, another issue. The state, again, didn't step in, didn't help. I created Formula Finder to find baby formula. I just don't think I should have had to create those websites. I don't think a private citizen should have to step up like they have, and I want to step into the state senate. I want to put service over politics, and I want to try and get things done and focus on everybody. So as a software engineer, we have to fix a lot of issues. People come up to us and they say, I want this website, I want this app, I want all these things. I really don't care how you do it, I just want you to get it done. And I think I can take those skills and I can bring them in the state senate, and I can focus on solving problems, being a problem solver, and working on people's issues. And it's really important to me. I keep saying service over politics. I've been running on it over a year, and it's about being in the community. It's about talking to people. It's about figuring out what people want us to fix and going out there and actually solving those problems. And I just don't think that's happening right now. And I'm very excited to step into the state senate, change the culture in Ankeny, change the culture in Iowa, and actually focus on helping people.
Thank you, Todd. Mike?
Well, like every other candidate before me, I want to thank the Ankeny Chamber. I think I'm number 6 to do that tonight. Also, Andrea Woodard, I'd like to thank you for moderating. I know that's a thankless job. Melissa Cox, you put together great events, as Todd mentioned, throughout your time here. And the Government Affairs Committee, again, thankless jobs to gather questions and put all this together. So thank you all, because it really is a service to the community. And it showcases people who care, people who want to step up and be a voice for their community. And I'm Mike Lucilo, as I've mentioned, and I'm a state representative today, and I'm running for state senate. I grew up in Davenport, Iowa. I've made my life with my wife here in Ankeny, Iowa. My small business is based here. We go to church at St. Luke the Evangelist. I was elected for the first time ever a year ago. Our community lost a great friend and a great statesman in John Landon. And for me, I think during the pandemic, like many Iowans, I probably have taken for granted the important role our locally elected officials play in determining and overseeing and regulating our freedom and our security and our prosperity. And when John passed with the support of Marvis Landon, who's here tonight, I ran for representative and was elected. Never been in an elected office before. But I tried to focus on policies that were going to help foster a place that created jobs, or help improve our schools, or make our community a safer place. Unfortunately, over the past years, we all know the cost of living has dramatically increased on Iowans, on all Iowans. And so as my first session in the legislature, we got to work. We cut taxes for all Iowans, across the board, making sure that every Iowan would get to keep a little bit more of their money. We also eliminated taxes that were going to have an impact on families, like sales taxes on diapers and feminine hygiene products, which was far overdue but has a major impact on everyday Iowans. Finally, eliminated the retirement income tax on our retired Iowans, so they don't have that incentive to go find better weather anymore. At the same time, we balanced our budget, put more money into those things that we all value as Iowans. More money for schools, more money for mental health care, more money for our law enforcement. It's been the honor of my life to serve for 1 year as your state representative. And I'm honored to be here tonight talking about why I would like to be your state senator. So thank you.
Thank you. So our first question, and again, so it'll be Mike, Mike, Todd, Todd, Mike, Mike, Todd, Todd. Okay, so, right, have fun. So Mike, first question to you, and again, 2 minutes apiece. What can you do to bring civility to the election process and after you're elected? 2 minutes.
And I'm going to need to go through the math of how you did, the Mike, Todd. That was impressive. I learned last year by listening to my fellow residents here in Ankeny, that it's just people. Politics is people. Politicians are people. Our government entities are people. And by going around and talking to people and listening, you humanize the process. By being here tonight, you humanize the process. And ultimately, we as people, we get what we demand. We get what we ask for, we get what we fight for. And I've been proud and believe that civility comes by first recognizing that we're all just folks who can have a conversation. By not questioning motives, we're not questioning that we all know we want a better Iowa, but questioning maybe the policies that we're going to propose. And to me, when you're a candidate, that means keeping it about the policies, not about things that are off topic, but talking about those policies that matter, that are going to impact everyday Iowans. And when you're elected, to continuing to reach across the aisle. I was proud that over the past year that I've been in office, more than 90% of the bills that we passed in the state legislature were passed on a bipartisan basis. I'm a real estate attorney for my day job. That's how I make money. And who knew politicians could make attorneys look reasonable? But that's what I think has happened in society today. And as a real estate attorney, my job is not to fight with the other side. It's to try and work with both sides to get to a deal that makes sense for everybody. I've tried to take those lessons with me to the Capitol, to work with both sides to get things done for Ankeny, for everybody.
Thank you. Todd.
One of the main reasons why, as I'm going through the process on trying to decide if I'm going to run for office or not, when I created the sites for Vaccine Hunter and Formula Finder, was the community that it created. I had the site, but all the people that joined in and helped their neighbors, helped their friends, helped their families find vaccines and formula, we were all working for the common good. We were all working together for those things. And I just took a step back and said, can we expand on that? Can we actually make that work in the state even further? And why can't we do that with legislation? Why can't we do that as a community? So I want to create a community for this. I want there to be back and forth conversations. A lot of people on the door say, this is way too divisive. I don't understand. Why are we not getting things done? And I think it's because we're not having conversations. I don't think we're having a lot of these community events. And it's more of us just talking to people too. I think it needs to be, let's sit in a circle and actually talk about things and figure out how people are coming from. I think that's really important. And that really is the core belief of service over politics and what I've been trying to run on. We need to be in the community. We need to be talking to people. We need to be transparent. We need to be honest. And I think most importantly, I think people need to feel like they're being involved. And sometimes I just don't think people think about that. And as a community, if we get together, I think we can really change things and make it a lot more civil.
Thank you. Okay, so Todd, you're up first for this one. A major tax bill was passed in the legislative session last year. What tax incentives do you plan to undertake or support in this next session if elected?
I'm very confused because I thought it was Mike Money Tom. Now we're Mike Tom. I want to focus more on middle and low income families. I think that they are being pushed to the wayside, and we need to focus more on that. I want to provide a more equitable tax relief, give middle class Iowans more tax relief, and I want corporations to pay their fair share. The flat tax bill was passed, and I created a tax calculator, and you can go out there and you can put in your income, dependents, other things like that, because I wanted people to see, because taxes are complicated, what are you actually going to get from this? And the majority of Iowans aren't going to get anything from it for 3 years, and that message is not hit home. People are finding it complicated, but that's the truth. It's all Iowans, but it might be all Iowans 4 years down the road. It might be $50 a month. That needs to change. Middle class Iowans need more focus. The other thing I'm hearing on the doors is property tax relief. People are very concerned as we take away income tax, what is going to happen in these communities, and it's probably going to be property tax. So people are very concerned by that. And the reason I really like knocking doors is you hear all these good ideas, and someone came to me and said, there are states around here, Todd, that are limiting property taxes once you turn 65. When people turn 65, they are actually capped, and it makes it, you can budget around it. You kind of know as you retire that you have a concrete property tax. I think that's something we need to look into. I think it's a little bit complicated. We need to figure out the details on that, but we need to start looking into these other states and how they are handling tax relief for other islands.
Thank you. Mike, you're up.
Well, like everybody up here, we talked about how we've knocked doors. That's okay, you don't need to answer quite yet. I'm answering first. We've knocked doors. We've all knocked doors. And I knocked on the door the other day of a guy who answers, and he's got a young baby in his arms. He says to me, I said, what's important to you? What are you working on? He said, it's more expensive than ever for my family to make ends meet. So I got this new baby, and I go to the grocery store, and what used to cost $90 now costs $125. And go to the gas station, and that costs more. And frankly, I can't afford going out to eat. He was a manager of a restaurant. It's like going out to eat is a luxury for our family, and that's different than it used to be. And he said, tax cuts you passed, eliminating that sales tax, that 7% on diapers, that matters for my family. Lowering the income tax, that matters for my family. Talking to Iowans who are retired who say, with property taxes going up, I'm on a fixed income. And lowering that income tax rate, eliminating it for retirement income, that matters to me, Mike. Helps me stay here, helps me stay in my house and not have to find somewhere else to live. And so we need to keep focusing on the fact that we can keep lowering those income taxes. We can do it to stay competitive with other states. And we can do it because it impacts not just businesses, small businesses that are pass-through entities, but it impacts Iowa working families. We also have to look at property taxes. I heard the same idea at the door. Maybe we're knocking the same doors. And about the 65. I think that we need to address property taxes, because when I hear a business owner telling me that she pays more for her child care facility in Ankeny than someone in Atlanta, that doesn't make sense to me. And so we can address that, I think, next session.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question, we will start with Mike. I know it is confusing, but you're all each taking a turn answering first. Okay. Describe your thoughts on Iowa's election integrity. Are our elections safe? What changes would you like to see for our election process? So, Mike, you're up first.
Thank you. Who knew having 4 candidates up here would be simpler? But here we are. So, there's been a number of changes that have taken place in our election system over the past, 4 or 5 years, instituting policies that are meant to instill a high level of integrity and accuracy into our elections. Voter ID, regulations around who and when you can vote, and even making sure, like I voted for this past year, regulating special interests or eliminating special interests from funding our election vote counters. We can't talk about what we passed this year, the only session I've been involved in voting for something, but with all the other changes that have passed, turnout's gone up. And I was lucky to have volunteered to work on some recounts here in Iowa over the past, including, as we saw over in Southeast Iowa, when a congressperson won an election by 6 votes. And I can say, as a volunteer who worked on that, I can say as somebody who has reviewed the election laws here in Iowa, that while I will never say that our election system is perfect, because there's always room for improvement, I trust wholeheartedly the system we have here in Iowa, that it produces results with integrity, and that it produces results with accuracy, and it is governed by policy that reflects the values of Iowans. So I think we've got great policies in place that keep our elections safe, and I think we need to keep looking at what can make them safer, like we did this past session, and just keep looking at, after each election, what makes sense.
Thank you. Todd?
Iowa's elections are safe and secure. And we need to do everything possible to ensure that and to protect our right to vote. Any changes to the elections process is a problem trying to find a solution. And we need to make sure that it's easier to vote in Iowa. And let's be clear, Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election. Donald Trump won the 2020 election in the state of Iowa. Joni Ernst won in 2020, and so did Cindy Ankeny. But there's a bunch of politicians that don't want to say that because they'll get political retribution. And that's a problem. Until we can actually say and certify the elections, we need to have the responsibility to defend the Constitution and defend our voting rights. And unfortunately, there are people that refuse to do that, and it shouldn't depend on whether the person that they're voting for wins the election or not. That's important to make it easier to vote and certify the elections.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question, we'll start with Todd. What does school choice mean to you, and how do you think it impacts students?
Yeah, I believe public dollars should be funding public schools. I think it's as simple as that. But I'm a vocal opponent against the private school voucher bills that have been pushed. And vouchers don't give parents a choice. They just fund public education. And Ankeny parents and kids deserve great schools and small class sizes. And we need to treat our teachers with respect and fully fund our public schools. And if we don't do that, parents don't have any choice, they just have inadequate schools. I grew up in Indianola, and we have a lot of rural districts down there. We have Martinsdale, we have I-35. And as I think about these bills that come forward, I think about those rural districts down there. And I don't think that they could survive. I don't think taking that money away from those schools, I think that they would, at a minimum, consolidate. And I think it's shown in the state the past 20 years that once you consolidate a district, it will not be unconsolidated. It's never gonna come back. And I worry for those rural communities. I worry about Martinsdale, I worry about Indianola even. And we need to focus on public education, and we need to focus on funding it properly.
Thank you. Mike?
So, walking and talking to folks here at Ankeny, listening to voters, I've learned that this is a great question because school choice means something to a lot of different people, different things to different folks. And this past year, we passed a bill that gives all Iowans something that I would call public school choice. It allows you to, as a resident in Ankeny, if you are unhappy or the Ankeny community schools aren't meeting your district, to have your child or student and move to, say, North Polk or Bondurant, another public school that meets the needs for you and your family and your student ultimately. And for me, as I was talking to a mom at a door the other day, she said, I moved to Ankeny because I didn't have a choice. Because my daughter has special needs, she's on an IEP. And we were in the Des Moines School District. Ankeny can handle the special needs students better than anywhere in the state. And so I moved here because I had to. It's how I could get my daughter into the IEP program that is renowned. And I was talking to folks at Orvis and in Ankeny, at this community schools, and students there. I'm on the post-secondary readiness task force, and a student said, the traditional classes don't make sense for me. I'm looking for skilled workforce training. I don't want to go to college. I want to be a welder or an electrician. I want to go do work with my hands. For them, school choice is not about staying in that high school. It's about maybe going to a community college or going to get a skilled apprenticeship. And finally, for me, I grew up in Davenport. And Davenport's the one school in the history of the state that failed so poorly, so badly, unfortunately, that it was taken over by the state. And so school choice also means to me that these kids who are in failing school districts were there only because of the zip code that they were born in, only there because they lived near the school, had to stay there, and they didn't have a choice. Okay.
Thank you. So our final prepared question, we'll start with you, Mike. Hold on. There we go. Childcare is a commonly referenced barrier to workforce development. What should be done to assist the Iowa workforce with childcare, and how would you expand childcare capacity in Iowa?
I would be willing to bet, and we've heard this from the other candidates, that this is something that comes up at doors and comes up at forums and emails and from everybody, talking about, hey, how do we find affordable, reliable childcare? And that's something that we need to make sure that we address, because it is not just a childcare issue, it's a workforce issue, it's an academic issue. To talk to parents and to hear from a mom who, when our kids couldn't be in school, when they were locked out of school, who is making that terrible choice between making sure their student was doing their educational, tasks, or going to work to put food on the table and a roof over their head. You learn how important that child care is, and a terrible choice had to be made. We're talking to child care providers here. This year we changed and came in line with the majority of the country on the ratios that are there for teacher to students in classrooms, and in the red tape around that. And by changing those laws, we've improved access to childcare. There's more slots available, and the amount that can be paid for teachers, improving teacher pay. But we need to do more, and we need to encourage employer-based childcare. My brother-in-law works at Casey's, and they have employer-based childcare, and it is one of the top employee retention tools they have. It makes folks want to go there, and it helps keep folks at Casey's. In a time with a labor market that's tough, we should be continuing to encourage employers and other folks to start child care facilities. We also need to realize that property taxes play a role in this. As I said, I talked to an owner of a child care facility here, and she says, I have a counterpart in Atlanta who pays higher property taxes than I do, or lower property taxes than I do here in Ankeny, Iowa. Like I said earlier, that doesn't make sense, and I think that's something we can address.
Thank you. Todd.
If we want to grow our workforce in Iowa, I think there's two main things that we need to do. The first thing we need to do is figure out ways to get more people into Iowa. I think that people are leaving right now. We're having a huge drain out of colleges, and that's a big deal. We need to work on that. The other thing we need to do is make sure that daycare is more affordable and accessible. If we want people to work, they need to be able to take their kids to daycare. It's very important. And it shouldn't cost a mortgage payment to send your kids to daycare. My jaw always hits the ground every year when we do our taxes, because we pay over $20,000 to have both of our boys in daycare, and it's egregious. I'm glad that we are capable of doing that, but I think there's a lot of families that aren't. There's a lot of families having these tough decisions on, do I stay home? Do you stay home? Do we both work? Is this even possible to do all of this? And I think that that's a part of our workforce issues that we're seeing. There's a lot of families that are choosing to have one or maybe none, but one stay home. And part of setting up our schools for success is expanding on the wraparound care program. I think that if we focus more on schools, had more of a program where we could have daycares in schools, I think it would help the communities that they're in. It would also help with teacher retention too. I think the teachers would be very happy to have a daycare in their buildings. I think that's really important. I'll tell you what I would not have done is I would not have voted to lower safety standards in child care centers. That doesn't solve the problem. It only puts our children in more danger, and we need to think about these solutions, and that is absolutely not what we should have done.
Thank you. Okay, so got a good stack of questions, good broad range of topics, and we will get to as many as we can, noting that we will end for sure by 8:30, maybe a little early if we can, but anyway, we again, thank you all for your questions here. So because Todd, you finished that last question, you're going to start the next one. So this question is a question about Medicaid. What are the strengths of Iowa's third-party managed care system for Medicaid? What are its weaknesses, and how would you address those?
I can't tell you the number of sad stories I've heard from families with special needs children in Ankeny that are on Medicaid. In fact, I go home and I talk to my wife about them almost every time, because they're really bad. And these families don't really have a lot of choices in the matter. We have 3 companies that are involved in this process. You can't privatize something without competition. These 3 companies are not competing with each other. They're just there to provide care. And it doesn't work like that. And we've been shown by the auditor's report that the quality of care is going down while the costs are going up. And 2 in 5 children in Iowa are on Hawkeye or Medicaid. There's a considerable amount of children that are affected by this. So at a minimum, we need to introduce competition. I think that would solve a lot of this. There's a lot of providers dropping out because the reimbursement rates are so low. So that needs to be worked on too. There's a lot of people that are not accepting Medicaid right now. There's families, especially dental. Most of the people I talk to that are looking for dental on Medicaid are going to Iowa City. And that is completely unacceptable. and we need to work on these things. And it's sad, it's sad. And the fact that the legislature got that audit report and hasn't made any changes or even talked about what we can do to change that after getting that report is why I'm running for office. It's very much service over politics, right? We need to take action on these things, and we need to make sure we're helping people. And right now, these people are not being helped.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, so Medicaid is, a safety net healthcare program that is serving the most vulnerable islands. At its core, folks who have nowhere else to go for healthcare, as well as serving folks in the expansion population who, have come to Medicaid because while they're work able, have no other healthcare options either. Either way, it's serving folks who are in need, Iowans who are in need. And what it does well, and it does well not only according to me, but according to J.D. Power and Associates, who looked at patient satisfaction surveys, is it puts that patient first over providers, and it says that we're going to guarantee access. There's going to be access to healthcare. In fact, not just guarantee access, but guarantee access to healthcare with the same level of benefits, at the very least, that the governor has. So it has a great level of benefit, access to a great level of benefits, but it also, with that being the second highest area of spending, puts the taxpayer, the people who make Medicaid possible, in a place to have that accountability. What I've learned is, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to civility or government, even elections, it's about people. And we need to realize that people make mistakes, and as those mistakes get made, we as legislators need to continue working to improve those programs, leaning in to make sure that the oversight is there and improving for us.
Thank you. So Mike, the next question will start with you. What can the Iowa legislature do to assist Iowans with the increased costs due to high inflation? And I know you touched a little bit on this in your opening remarks, but.
No, the high cost of living is something that it's affecting every single Iowan in every single facet of life, whether it's going to the grocery store, going to the gas station, going out to eat. I hear it at the doors, I hear it really from everywhere I go. It's not just a high cost of living that impacts working Iowans, it's a high cost of living that impacts small businesses who are just in the community trying to help folks. We need to continue doing things that allow Iowans to keep more money in their pockets. First, I'm proud of the income tax cuts that we passed that help Iowans across the board. Every Iowan who pays taxes is going to get a tax cut. The sales taxes are going to help our working families keep a little bit more in their pocket, stretch that dollar a little bit further. As we've discussed tonight, property taxes are something that are paid, again, by business and by individuals. And if you're on a fixed income, if you're retired, those property taxes have to be paid out of that fixed income. So when they go up, you've got less to make ends meet. We need to continue looking for ways to give tax relief to Iowans, whether that's income tax relief, sales tax relief, property tax relief.
Thank you. Todd.
I think you guys are hearing a theme tonight. It's like a one-trick pony. Tax cut, tax cut, tax cut. And I think a lot of people like what I'm trying to do here because I'm trying to implement things a little differently. And the first step should not be tax cuts. There's a lot of things we can do. Number one, we need higher wages in Iowa. If you're on a minimum wage job, it's going to require at least 2 of those jobs to even make ends meet in Iowa. Our minimum wage is atrocious, and that needs to be raised. So we need to work on raising wages for everybody. The other thing is, we have a rental assistance program that the federal government has given us, and Polk County is last in putting that out. They have barely put out any money to help Iowans. They haven't helped with rental assistance. They haven't helped with anything. I'm tempted to create a rental assistance hunter, if I can say it, because for some reason, Polk County won't help people with that. And then we've already talked about it a little bit, but daycare is a big deal. We need to make that more affordable. I think families that are trying to get back to work, trying to get a living wage, they're also under the burden of who is going to help us watch our kids. We've been lucky. We moved back to Ankeny. My wife was born and raised, but we've lived here for 7 years because my wife's parents are here, right? We have babysitters here when we need them. We do daycare too, but a lot of people don't have that, and I think daycare is really important. But we shouldn't just default to tax cuts. There's a lot of programs that already exist that we can actually work on and improve and help people out in Iowa.
Thank you. Okay, Todd, so next question is for you to start. What are your thoughts on the election ballot question to add the right to bear arms to the state constitution? And if elected, do you have any legislative priorities related to guns?
If we took the Second Amendment and we put it on the Iowa Constitution, I would have absolutely no problem with that. It's a constitutional amendment, it makes a lot of sense. But they added strict scrutiny to it, which changes the game quite a bit. It's the highest level of, in the judicial branch, it's the highest level you can have. So if we wanted to pass any gun sense legislation, it would almost immediately go to the judicial branch and get struck down. So I am a no vote on that just because of that. I wish we would have just done Second Amendment and codified it, but we didn't. For gun sense legislation, I would like background checks. I would like red flag laws. There's an argument between common sense gun legislation and the Second Amendment, and it's separate, but those can go hand in hand. And 80% of Iowans and people in the US agree that we need red flag laws. I've got a first grader, and I'm worried that school safety is an issue. I want to be able to drop my kids off at school and make sure that crazy people don't get guns. And I don't think that's too much to ask. But with this amendment, I think that's going to be a lot harder to do in Iowa.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, Iowa is one of the few states that does not have the Second Amendment codified into our state constitution. I support codifying the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms in our state constitution. I believe that by passing that amendment, we can still keep on the books and continue to pass common sense gun laws that allow law-abiding citizens to maintain and exercise their Second Amendment while also making sure that we are protecting Iowa citizens.
Thank you. So Mike, we'll start with you for this next question on affordable housing. What can the legislature do to accomplish, quote, affordable housing?
Well, there's a few things the legislature needs to focus on. One is making sure that we're creating incentives so that folks can go and build affordable housing in places where it returns on the investment for that builder, for that developer. The other thing that we need to focus on, though, is not just creating incentives, but realizing what drives cost. That if you're building housing and you're putting red tape and regulations around what has to be done when that house gets built, or you're making it tough because one area of the state has red tape that's different than another area of the state, we need to realize that it needs to be streamlined. Because as you've heard from a bipartisan chorus tonight, finding affordable housing, whether it's in Ankeny or Algona, is a challenge to bringing folks to Iowa, keeping folks in Iowa, and creating more jobs in Iowa. So we need to make sure that the incentives align with creating those housing units, creating houses in multifamily, townhomes, apartments, but also making sure that we are cutting red tape, streamlining regulations, and making it a priority that our housing is affordable for Iowans today, to be built, and into the future.
Thank you. Todd?
I hit on this a little bit before, but I do think that the rental assistance would help a lot with this, especially in Polk County. I also want to see more multi-use buildings. I live on the northwest side, and Ziggy's went in, and we have, it's kind of a strip mall on the bottom, and then housing on top. And I feel like if we did that a lot more often, there's incentive for the city to have more commercial, but there's also incentive to get more housing at the same time. So I think that just implementing our zoning a little bit differently and doing more of that, I think that's a big deal. And more townhomes, there's a lot of townhomes going in, that's a lot more affordable. And things like that, I think that we can be different on how we implement these things.
Thank you. Okay, so Todd, first up for the next question. In the last legislative session, a bill was passed to decrease the amount of time workers could receive unemployment benefits, and then required them. What is your view on that piece of legislation, and would you make any changes?
Yeah, I sometimes feel like we look at these single metrics and we try to solve a problem that isn't there. And I think the synopsis of this bill was trying to just lower the unemployment rate at the mercy of everything else. And it's going to cause a lot of problems, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for small businesses. When we go into off-season, and a lot of the construction workers and union workers are in the off-season, they're going to go and on unemployment, and they're going to find temporary jobs because this new bill has required them to, right? After 1 week, you start losing your wage, and you're required to pick up a job at a lower wage unless you're kicked off unemployment. So what people are going to do is they're going to go get a job temporarily, and as soon as the weather changes, and as soon as the construction season starts, guess what? They probably won't even give it 2 weeks notice. They are out, and they're going to go back to their good paying union job. So at the mercy of lowering the unemployment rate, we've caused a cycle of these jobs and openings. And again, it's just a poor implementation of something that, frankly, I don't even think was an issue. Our issue is we need to get more people into Iowa, right? The unemployment rate is pretty low already. So passing this bill and lowering that is just not the answer to this. Let's find a way to get more Iowans.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, so this past session, Governor Reynolds proposed and the legislature passed a law that was the first modernization. It was the first time unemployment, the mission of unemployment had been looked at in 100 years. And when unemployment was created, it was the only safety net for an Iowan who lost their job. They didn't have rental assistance, food assistance, healthcare assistance, any of those other programs that are out there for working Iowans who could lose their jobs. And instead, it said, now with these other programs, what should our modern re-employment programs be looking at? Changed it to a re-employment program, looking at saying, this program can be about giving folks the training they need for the jobs of today and in the future. Because we have more jobs available than Iowans looking, we, as the governor proposed and we codified that instead of losing benefits at 6 months, it would be at 4 months. But today, if you lose your job, you have to take a job for what pays less right away. That was already the law. What we put in there is you don't have to take that job if you're finding workforce training. Again, getting those skills you need for the jobs of the future. And by doing that, and the policies we put in place, makes it less expensive to hire Iowans. That's important because we go look at businesses, and I go talk to businesses across the district saying how hard it is to hire. By making it less expensive, they can pay more. And that makes a difference for Iowa families.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so I've got 2 more questions before we do closing remarks. So Mike, you'll get this one, and then Todd will get the next one, and then Mike will start with the closing comments. So Mike, here's your question. How does Iowa most effectively balance support for the growth of both small and large businesses throughout the state?
Well, it's understanding, again, that small businesses are run by people, that by what we've done on the tax and regulatory environment impacts small businesses, whether that's reducing the individual income tax rate or looking at and reducing red tape around professional regulation so that it's more seamless for folks to move into Iowa, for those workforce jobs to be filled. We also need to realize that we need a pipeline. One thing that's frustrated me and one area that I think we need to focus on is that we need more skilled workers, but we don't necessarily need to look outside the borders of our state to find them. There is at Des Moines North High School, they lost their welding teacher. He retired. It's a very easy answer. He had served a great career and he moved on. The challenge isn't that they lost their welding teacher, it's that they can't find a new one. It pays more to just go be a welder. What can we do to help create that flow of workforce, getting our students the skills they need to fill the jobs of today and the future for not only our businesses, but also for their families? Because these businesses and those jobs, what it comes down to is putting food on the table for families and a roof over their head. And we need to continue focusing on policies that are going to promote all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd.
Talked to a lot of people, I think we all have, and talked to a lot of small business owners in Ankeny. And I think small businesses require something slightly different than the large businesses, but the small businesses that I've talked to are focused on benefits and trying to get their employees benefits. They're running a good business, they want to get over the hump, and they want to give their employees a good wage and a good benefits program. And it's hard to do that. And I think as a small business owner, to try and grow those small businesses into large businesses, we should be putting incentives on the table to treat their employees right. I think that's what we need to do for small businesses. For large businesses, we need to incentivize jobs. A good example is, I'm an IT guy, right? But those data centers in Altoona, we gave them huge incentives for 12 jobs a building. Those incentives were not tied to the jobs. If we had businesses coming into Iowa that could offer us hundreds, thousands of jobs, good paying jobs, they deserve incentives, right? We need to be pushing employers and companies that are going to bring jobs to Iowa and potentially employees to Iowa too, which is what we need too. So I think that there's different ways to handle different sized companies, but I think in both cases we can incentivize.
Thank you. So for our last question, I'm going to take a little bit of liberty as the moderator. Can we do 3 minutes each for this next question, because I'm combining two, and we're going to kind of come back to the question that we started with. We started with the question about civility. This one is about bipartisanship, and you should have more time because hopefully you can come up with a lot of ideas. And here are the questions: is give an example of a measure or something that you want to do if elected to the Iowa Senate to improve bipartisanship, and kind of the other piece of that was, is there something that you feel that you do differently than the party that you have next to your name on the ballot? So 3 minutes. Thanks, Melissa, for humoring me on this one. And yes, Todd, you are up first, so whenever you're ready.
Sometimes when people are running for office, it feels like they're joining a gang. And they can only vote with that gang, right? I want to get rid of that. I don't think that that's a thing, and that's definitely not service over politics. We should be running to help people, and it shouldn't be a D or an R next to the name. I talk to a lot of legislators that say the only way that some of these things come through is if technically I'm sponsoring the bill. Well, my name's not on the bill, otherwise it's going to die. We need to get around that. We need to work on things. We need to work with each other. And I think we also need, just like I said before, community events, office hours, talking to people, and listening to ideas. So many ideas on the doors, and they're so good. And people want to talk about what ails them. And I think that we can solve a lot of those issues just with communication. I was introduced to an event, and it was an old party chair too, and she's like, I don't know if I can say this as a party chair, but I feel like Todd is going to be one of the few people that is not going to always vote with his party. And I took a lot of pride in that. I think that's really important. And I think that if we all had that attitude, and we had the attitude to try to help people and not special interests, I think we would be a lot better off. So those are my goals, and I think we can do it. I really do.
Thank you. Mike.
You know, I mentioned this earlier, but I mentioned it at doors. People are always surprised to learn that more than 90% of what we passed this past year was bipartisan. There was rancorous debate. There was back and forth in the process of writing the bill, amending the bill. But at the end of the day, just like it happens when I'm working on something for real estate, both sides came together and said, hey, this makes sense. It wasn't what all one side wanted or the other. Tonight is a great example of the areas that we can work on that are just like that. How many times did we hear during the House candidates were up here with Todd and I up here about mental health care? We need to do something about it. Workforce issues. We need to do something about it. We heard about child care from families. We need to do something about it. Number one, and something I've always tried to do is, two thinking people will never agree on everything. But if you're principled, if you're honest, you go about your work that way, people will respect where you're at. I've been pleased to learn that is how business gets done more than 90% of the time at the Capitol. And something that I take a particular amount of pride in is that my campaigns, and frankly the issues at the Capitol, they are about policy, not doubting the motives of another person. I believe that by remembering we're all people, we're here because we believe in Iowa, we believe in our community, we're willing to make sacrifices to help be a voice for our community. If we remember those things and we focus on those areas where we can find common ground, which I think outnumber the areas where we can't. 1 year of being a legislator shows me that we can make progress on things like mental health care, workforce housing, our education system, skilled workforce training. And I would continue to try and seek that bipartisanship.
Thank you both. And with that, we will go to our closing remarks. We started with our opening remarks from Todd and then Mike. So Mike, we'll have you kick off. You have 3 minutes for your closing statement, and then we'll have just a few comments of wrap up. And for those that I maybe didn't touch on your question, I've no doubt if you ask them afterward or via email or something, you'll get your response. So hopefully we covered as much as we possibly could this evening. So Mike, go ahead with your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank you, Andrea, for moderating. You did a great job, even with the liberty you took and the confusion of who trades off first or second. We had a bunch of questions tonight that I think address what Ankeny voters care about. I also want to thank Melissa again in the chamber. You guys run tremendous events that matter to Ankeny, whether that's being at a ribbon cutting for a small business or hosting a forum like this. I'd also like to thank my wife who's here tonight and my family and friends who are here, and Todd's family and friends who support him. We're up here, but it's a whole army behind both of us. We were both talking about how humbling it is to have folks that you have never really met to volunteer to say, hey, can I help stuff envelopes, knock doors, send texts, all of these things that go on. And I just want to thank those folks, because some of them are here tonight, and it touches my heart and to have your support. I ran for office for the first time ever a year ago. And my promise then was to be somebody who listened to you, worked hard on your behalf no matter what, and was a principled voice for our community and for our values at the State House. What that meant then, and what it means now, is putting people first. Not politics or political party, but realizing that the people in this room and the others in Ankeny are the ones who elect us, that our covenant is to our voters and to Iowans as a whole. I'm asking for your vote in this election. I think this election is about trust. It's about who you trust. It's also about who trusts you. Who trusts your family and you to make the best decisions for your family. Who trusts you with the dollars that you've earned to do what's best for your family and your community. I ran for office. I continue to seek a seat in the state Senate because I believe I can make a difference for working families, for our community. I do it because I trust you. And I hope that you trust me with your vote this election. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Todd.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Thank you for staying late. It's getting kind of late. I know a lot of people have to come drop out, but and being a part of this process. This is it, right? We show up, we talk about things. I think that's a really important piece of this. And I truly enjoyed campaigning. I thought I was going to be scared to death of door knocking, but people really like to talk about what ails them, right? They like to talk about what the state could do to fix things. And I like to do that. I like to write it down. I like to figure out how I can solve those problems. So hopefully in the state Senate I can do that. I can be a problem solver for everybody, and it's really important. The main thing I hear on the doors is getting things done. And it's just so divided right now, right? We need to talk about things, but at the same time, we've had a Republican trifecta for a long time. Are things getting done? There's a lot of things falling by the wayside. And we need to focus on things, and we need to work on solving problems. Privatized Medicaid, it's clear by the audit report that was a problem and nothing happened. Vaccine Hunter and Formula Finder, why did I have to step in and do that as a private citizen? We need to get the state Senate to be an example in Iowa, and we need the state Senate to actually focus on helping people. We need to focus on education. We need to go back to number one. It's severely underfunded every year. We're losing teachers every day. 79 teachers last year, over 400 in Des Moines. There's a problem. We need to look into it. We need to focus on that. Mental health beds. It's egregious. We took a tour of Blank about a month ago. We took a tour of Broadlawns. There are not enough mental health beds, and people are being turned away. This is not good. We're not focusing on solving issues, and that's what I want to do. I want to talk to people. I want to go to these organizations that are way smarter than me, figure out what the problems are, and actually go and solve those in the state senate. So hopefully you can join me. Let's put service over politics, and let's actually get things done. Please vote for me on November 8th. And my website's toddforiowa.com, and I have business cards. Give me a call, send me an email, and we can chat more about all of this for sure, and ask me any question. But it was great tonight. Thank you. And I survived.
Well, and they both survived. Round of applause for them both. Thank you both. Thank you to joining us on behalf of the Ankeny Area Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank you all for being here. Just a reminder, election is November 8th. Polls are open that day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can vote in person at your auditor's office or satellite locations already. And make sure you can get on the Polk County website, auditor's website, or the Iowa Secretary of State site to find your polling location. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.